Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. It's great to be back. I've taken a little bit of a break from the podcast. The truth is, actually, I did record a couple of episodes, but I didn't like them for a number of reasons. I will end up, I'm sure, talking about the topics that I recorded about at some point in the future, but it just didn't feel right. Do you know, like sometimes you just do, whatever it might be, you might just do something and it's like, not quite sure about it. And I'm always a little bit aware that if I put something out there and it's not of the quality that I would want, then I tend to just not put it out there. So I'm aware that it's about, one of the topics was about, for example, like boundaries. I found it really hard to talk about because it was quite, I found it quite triggering, if I'm honest, mainly because I find it quite hard to put boundaries in because I'm that fear of like upsetting someone or saying the wrong thing, even though I know it's the right action to take. And so I recorded something that's about 20, 25 minutes long. But in the end, I was like, do you know what? I couldn't quite capture really what I wanted to share because I think maybe I was a bit scared about talking about it. So I'm going to go away and do some work on that. But what that's meant with over the last sort of 2 to 3 weeks, and I was quite busy anyway with Tutors Who Thrive stuff going on, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. And also with the TTA, we went to Paris for a few days and then we had the conference. There's been a lot going on. And so there wasn't a lot of space in between to really think or record a podcast. Anyway, I'm back at it. Like I promised last week, I said I would record something for us, and it's strategy. I thought I'd come and talk to you about strategy because it's the really good time for that. We've just finished a 5-day challenge for tutors, all about strategy, where we covered topics around our vision for our business, why it's important to write down our ideas and give ourselves goals, how we create a really good goal for our business that's aligned with where we want to be. So I thought I'd come and talk to you about that. Also prominent because we are creating more and more opportunities for tutors to meet face to face and work on their business. And strategy is part of that. Out of everything that I've been taught over the last 3 to 4 years around business, strategy and then how to actually drive that strategy forward has really been the thing that has helped me get to where I am today. Even to the point where I've had quite a quiet start to tuition compared to last year. Last year, I had the best start ever. Like we had sort of 40 children in the first 4 weeks, and then it quickly doubled, right? We got to almost 80 children last year in a really short space of time. This year, it's not been quite the same. Well, and there's reasons for that. First of all, is I don't need those larger numbers. I've actually reduced the size of my tuition business so that I can actually have a bit more focus and energy on Tutors Who Thrive. And so I made that decision to say, actually, what I'd like to do is just ring fence some more time, not just give myself more tuition hours, even though I really do need them. I found tutors to come and work, which has been a real big pain point in my business anyway. But do you know what? Really, I'm going to share with you here is I've managed to achieve all of that thing, all of those things, because I've added it to a strategy and then I've taken action to make it work. It's not perfect yet. That's fine, but it is working. The bills are getting paid. Both businesses are safe and stable and growing. That's the most important thing. What I'm really proud of is that I've managed to find some really good tutors to come and work in a face-to-face center, because last year I really struggled with that. So that gives you a bit of context around why I think strategy is really important. I'm going to start right back at the beginning. When I first wanted to take the tuition business way more seriously, and it wasn't just about filling in a financial gap in my life and paying off some debt, and almost like that idea that I just wanted to show people that I could do this thing, and I wasn't a rubbish teacher. Actually, I absolutely love it and I'm passionate for it. And there was that there for me as well, which I kind of spoke about before, about identity and unraveling what I thought I was compared to who I should be next. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a really good one. And someone I met on LinkedIn who's an expert in identity, and we kind of unraveled what that's like as a teacher, or when we leave something that we kind of wrap our identity around, we leave that behind and have to kind of move into something new. If you haven't listened to that, definitely go and listen to it. So with strategy, when I started a few years ago, um, I had this business that was kind of earning about £600 a month, but I was working another job at the same time. So it was like top up money. It was money that we're going to call side hustle, right? That's the what I'd say is like the word to describe it. And it just gently grew into something that was earning £1,000 a month and then £1,500 a month, and it was growing. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm actually earning okay money here without spending a lot of time or putting a lot of effort into it. I was like, well, what if I did? What would that look like? And then I suddenly got to the point where I don't really know what that looks like. What does the effort mean? And if I'm going to put effort into something, I want to make sure that it's something that would work. How do I find this out? And that was when I started to explore self-development. I went to business conferences. I started doing free challenges. There was all these things that you could go and find that were there to help you grow a business. And yeah, sure, that some things were great, some things were not so great, some things really helped, some things just wasn't for me. And that's okay. That's kind of par for the course when you go down this path of self-discovery and just general growth. It's painful. You'll get some things right, you'll get some things wrong. That's just part of the course. What I found, what was happening time and time again, is that trusted people or people that I developed some trust with, they would talk about strategy. And they would say things like, and the cliche is, a target that's not written down is just a dream, or a goal that's not written down is just a dream. And I do agree with this. I do believe that if you've got an idea in your head and you can turn it into a goal for yourself, if you track it in some way, or you make it real, so it gets out of your brain and onto a piece of paper, or maybe it's written on a Google Sheet or a Google Doc or a Word document, just somewhere, or even on your notes and your phone, you're taking it from like this imaginary thing in your brain into something either digital or physical. Just by doing that, you're taking it out of your kind of unconscious into the conscious thought, and then down into something which is a little bit more tangible, maybe a tiny little bit more accountable, or there's a little bit more accountability there. So if you can read it, you can come back to it and you can say, well, am I doing this? Why aren't I doing it? Where am I getting this motivation from to do it? Sometimes these things are an easy question to ask ourselves, but the answers can be really hard to find. I found strategy really confusing in the beginning because there were so many unknowns. And I heard people talk about like writing down your goals, tracking them. Things that we're really good at teachers is we start with the end in mind. And we do this a lot with our lesson planning and the way we think about how we will support a young person or a child to move from where they are now to where they need to be. It's why it's a really good idea in primary school, particularly if you're a key stage or predominantly a key stage 2 teacher, to spend some time in year 6. Because if you're a year 3 teacher, if you know where they've got to be by the time they get to year 6, you have a much better understanding of why we need to get through some of the work, why there are certain things that you have to go through that, all right, it aligns, with the curriculum, but there might be other conversations around that really helps the child that you're teaching and the room that you're teaching to understand why it's important. It's like, look, when in year 6, you're going to be doing this, this, and this, and the expectation is going to be here. If we do the hard work now, we'll be able to reach that really comfortably by the time we get there. It's the same in business. If we know what we're aiming for, it gives us direction. If we start with the end point in mind, we can just work it back into a much smaller, more manageable, more palatable target. And this is the beauty of it. But what do you do right at the beginning of your business if you've no idea what that looks like? You haven't really thought about the future yet because you don't even know if your business is viable. Now, I know here I'm talking to a very like maybe a small group of people who listen to the podcast, because some of you might be quite well established tutors already. Some of you might be maybe you've been doing it for quite a while. It doesn't mean to say like your business is as successful as you want it to be, but essentially you might have some of this stuff like locked away deep inside of you, some of this knowledge, and you're going to bring it out when you develop your strategy. If you don't know what you don't know. I remember going to a strategy day a couple of years ago, and I think there was questions were being put out to the floor. So people who were in attendance were asked a question. Someone put their hand up and basically said that, like, look, I kind of understand business, but I don't know what I don't know. So if I want to reach point B, I know where I am right now because I've done the audit of my business, and I want to reach point B, which I'm kind of just making up the goal right now. And I'm going to do more of the same, but I don't think that's going to get me to my new target. And I don't know what I don't know. So I don't quite know how to fill in the blanks along the way. I don't know what the goals are. I don't know what the targets are. I don't know how to make the target a reality. And there was like a pause, and there was a kind of silence in the room for a bit while everyone was like, that does make sense, actually. So let's say you have a successful business. Perhaps you're making 10K, 15K a month in your tuition business, and your goal is to double it to get to 30 to 40K. It's highly likely that the things that you're doing now, the actions that you're taking in your business model is not really going to lend itself for you to get to that figure. You'd have to change something in your business. And this is where strategy can come in, because you can look at it, you can do an audit of all the services and what's on offer, how much each thing's worth, and then come at it from a different angle. You might still be in that position of like, you don't know what you don't know, but at least now you know something's got to change. And then you can start filling in the gaps by hiring a coach, finding a business mentor, going to networking meetings and asking questions. There are just ways forward. There are people who have trodden that path before, who have the answers, who can support you, but we need to go and find the right people to work with. It's also for you. That's what I'm saying. Strategy is also for you. It's not about just doing the same thing over and over again. It's about saying, this is where I am in my business. This is where I'd love to be. And I'm going to try and join the dots in between. And I'm using the word try because we don't know. And the strategy's role is not just about finding out what works. It's also about finding out what doesn't. I did a podcast with Matthew Kernier a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this being addicted to business. This, to me, is the addictive part. Now, we'll all have different parts of business that we like and loathe, but it's the experimentation and trying to find out what works is what keeps me like motivated and driven. I know what works in my business. Sometimes I even forget what actually works in my business. And I have to remind myself to go back and do those things. Particularly, like I said at the beginning, I've had a slow start to the tuition year in comparison to last year. So I've just gone back and gone, well, what worked last year? What am I going to do? Right, here we go. Here's what I did last year. Let's try it again. It's highly likely it's going to work. The thing about strategy, which really helps, is the writing down, right? So the accountability to that, bringing it out of your unconscious mind to your conscious, and then out somewhere where it's live. It becomes a thing then that you are, I want to say, accountable to. You don't have to be. And I think that's part of the danger of being self-employed, is that sometimes we make up these goals and then there's no real kind of danger or urgency about them. And it has to come from you and your perseverance and determination to make something happen. Now my strategy all lives on a Google sheet, and I take all of my day-to-day actions from that sheet. Okay, I know exactly the task that I want to complete, and I know why I want to do it. So that's also on there. And then I also understand how that links into the wider vision of the business. That's what we get from strategy. It's a layered process that starts with us thinking about where we want to be. It's then drilled down another layer where we say, well, what is it that we really want to achieve over the year? So we pick out maybe 2, sometimes 3 annual goals. Now you can go more. Some businesses, particularly larger corporations, usually have one big goal. I find with smaller businesses, it's a little bit more it's a bit more tricky than that. I have to find that I have to limit myself to 3 because I can have more. And often, sometimes they're kind of interlinked as well. Like, for example, like for my tuition business, it was like, I want to find 25 new students between this date and that date. That's not really an annual goal. I'm just bringing that down into something like 3 to 4 months because I know if I do that, then the business is absolutely safe. And it's, well, actually at that point, it'd be absolutely flourishing. So I'd be really happy with that. And then beside this, I'd say, like, this is how I'm going to do it. That's the bit that we often don't know. We don't know whether that bit's going to work or not. We have faith in that some of those things are going to work because they've worked before, but we also might have a few things in there that we are experimenting with. So, for example, last year, I'm in a big experimenter with things like marketing because people need to know you exist. You need to be visible. So last year, I did a couple of ad campaigns. I did one that was on a billboard, and then I did one that was in a high school's brochure, and I ran some Facebook ads. So actually looking back and reviewing like what happened and what led to me having the best start to the year, it was probably a combination of all three. Whereas this year, I decided not to do any of those things. Actually, all I did was just use my social media as a bit of an experiment because I still believe word of mouth is the way that we grow. That's still the case, but I definitely did have a slower start. We ended the challenge looking at future proofing the business. This is the other thing which I believe strategy gives us as tuition business owners. And it can depend on individuals. Not everybody wants to turn into an agency. Not everybody wants to turn into like an employment business. I get that. And so we have to look at what we want to achieve, which is why your vision needs to come from you. I do not believe in any cookie cutter approach to you growing your business. I would not want anybody to come to me and say, Rich, can you just give me the blueprint? Because I don't believe that exists. Because the way I do things, there will be commonalities between successful businesses, which is what we share in the course. It's also what we share inside the membership. There will be those commonalities. Of course, there will. But there will be unique decisions that you make and you need to make for you and your business that solely meets your needs. And so we need to bear those things in mind. So when we're going to look at like future proofing our business, it needs to be linked to what it is that we really want to achieve. So for those of you who really want to have like a large agency or a large business, lots of your decision-making processes are going to be around like, does this help me grow and hire new tutors? Does this help me grow and find the right amount of clients that I need to grow a bigger business? Because if you're not making those decisions, you are going to stay on your own. If you keep saying yes, for example, to one-to-one work and you are the only tutor, you are going to get stuck in your business delivering one-to-one tuition. If, however, you decide I'd like to do groups, whether it's small groups, large groups, or you'd like to set up groups for other tutors, make sure you are finding time to set those groups up, find the clients, but also go and recruit the right tutors. This bit's important because we have like these ideas that would work and do work in businesses, and yet we don't allow ourselves the time to go and make it actually happen. So when we're future-proofing the business, it's about decision-making, and that's what a strategy does. Here's the real secret, is that you can change your mind at any point. I don't know why this is a secret and why we don't talk about this. If it's not serving you, if you decided a year ago that you wanted to have a massive tuition business and you're trying to recruit people and you've got tutors on your books and you're ready and set up, but actually there's just something inside saying, do you know what? Actually, I just want to do this on my own. I've changed my mind. Fine, just change your mind. It's your business. You're allowed to do what you want at any stage. Obviously, I want you to grow your business to a level where you think it's successful. And that is a very personal thing. Again, I'm wearing out the word, aren't I? A strategy can help you find that. It can help you find that piece. I mean, look, I am a pretty unorganized person. I'm a little bit afraid to admit that, but I'll own it. Like I know there are times when I completely wing it. I know there are times when I don't do the jobs and the tasks that I need to do. I totally own that. But I know when I have a strategy in the background and I'm sat there twiddling my thumbs thinking, I don't quite know what to do next, I go straight to my strategy and then I'm on it for the next 3 or 4 weeks because I know those tasks are there for a reason. I actually set it out like this. I do have my annual goal. Or annual goals, have about 3 of them usually. And then I set that out into a more drilled down layer, like the next 3 months. And I have goal 1, 2, and 3. And then out of those things, I actually put it out into 3 other strands. Sometimes I can't get 3 strands out of it because it's a small target or a narrow target rather than being a small target. And I just drill into those, and then I get the how from it, like the actions I'm going to take. So, for example, one of my goals is to find 25 new students by me, I've said January, by the end of January 2025. How am I going to do that? Well, that's set out into 3, maybe 4 actions, like being way more visible on my Facebook page again. So that means creating content. So being way more visible leads to me developing content, back to writing blogs, back to chopping that blogs into separate posts. If you've done my course, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the content creation course where you start with long form content in mind that really serves your audience, which then can be broken down into little snippets that acts as a hook for new people to come in and get to know you. So I use that method. I know that works. That works really well for me because once I've written something, I can use AI to help me find the hooks from my blog. And so one thing leads to another, and then I've suddenly got like content coming out of every place possible. And then I just need time to schedule it. So you can see how my actions would go. Right, let's think about blog posts. Let's think about main points I want to cover that would help with finding smaller pieces of content as hooks. Then it's finding a regular time to schedule. Some of this stuff, if you're lucky enough to have a VA, could be going to your VA to do as well. Like I would always create content, but I might get my VA to do some of the scheduling, or even like, here's my blog that I've written. Can you create 10 posts for me? That's a more expensive way of doing it. And then you could use the VA's time somewhere else because your AI can do some of that work. But you know, you can start to see how it pieces together. Now, if your goal's bigger, like you want to grow an agency, your goal might be, well, I would like to find and hire 10 new tutors. Great. Point number 1 is, where are you going to find them? Where are your adverts going to go? Have you written your adverts? How good are they? Do you need to review them? Do you need to go over the job spec? Do you need to go over what the essential skills are so you can really filter them out? You can start piecing it together with the actions. Okay. So look, I know that I've hopefully overstated about strategy and why it's a really good idea to have something in play somewhere, even if it is loosely written down. I know I joked about the fag packet earlier on. Don't use a fag packet. Journal about it. Put it on a notepad. Put some things down on paper or type them up if that's more your vibe. It doesn't matter, but start putting some things down. I will be running a strategy challenge again in the future, probably around April, May time. The in-person events for strategy, please, please, please keep your eyes open for them. We're doing one at the end of November. This is November 2024. We will be doing, we're going to try to do 2 a year in person and offer at least 1 a year online. I'd like to do more in-person events. That's the aim for Tutors Who Thrive in 2025. I'd like to see more people in person. I think there's something about that connection which could really help us grow our business. Strategy is a really good topic and theme to come together over because we can all support one another with that. And I know I've got so many ideas for this. Anyway, we will leave it there. I hope you have a great week wherever you're listening and whatever time of year it is that you're catching up on this. Remember, come and join our Facebook group. It's an amazing space where people can get a lot of support. Follow us on Instagram, Tutors Who Thrive. We are growing the Instagram channel. It's a good way to connect with me on a personal level. I usually do 2 to 3 stories a day, sometimes more, depending on what's going on. It's a good way to stay up to date in general because obviously I do stuff for Tutors Who Thrive, but I also do some work for the TTA, so I tend to share quite a bit on there as well. So come and join us. Come and give us a follow. Right, everybody, until next time, and take care, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later.